mic check, please.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Ducks Unlimited podcast. I'm your host, Chris Jennings.
I'm your host, Dr. Mike Brazier.
My name is John Gordon. I'll be your host.
And I'm your host, Katie Burke.
Welcome to the Ducks Unlimited podcast, the only podcast about all things waterfowl. From hunting insights to science-based discussions about ducks, geese, and issues affecting waterfowl and wetlands conservation in North America. We bring the resource to you, the DU Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ducks Unlimited podcast. I'm your host, John Gordon. I'm a senior communications specialist at Ducks Unlimited, and I'm here in Middle Tennessee today. This is September. It's early season, resident Canada goose season. And we're here actually doing some filming for our new short film series, DU Nation, which is premiering September 15. And it's a much more fast-paced, organic type of series. And that led us here to Middle Tennessee with Alec Brown and Will Pruitt, who are serious goose hunters. I'm gonna have to give you all that that y'all don't play around. So, Alec, when did you decide that you really wanted to become a goose hunter?
Well, I started chasing them when I was 15 or so. And then 16, we started finding some more serious feeds and loaf ponds and stuff, getting permission on stuff, which is a lot to take on when you're 16. I realize that now.
Yeah. I'll take on when you're 53, like me.
Yeah, it's a lot to take on. It's a lot of liability you're dealing with there. But yeah, when I was about 16, we started finding some of these local ponds around here, realizing the amount of birds we had, the quality of birds we had, and there is some decent hunting around here if you play your cards right. Yeah.
Yeah, and you work for, and that's the whole key. I think that people don't hunt geese, right?
Right.
Y'all both told me that you basically had groups of guys that were hunting with you, and they kind of bailed on you.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
A lot of them don't even hunt anymore. I mean, there's still a few groups of them that do hunt, but not much. Not like we do.
Right. I got you. So y'all didn't know each other before that, right? As far as, until you met up with each other goose hunting, correct?
Yeah, we met.
I was out scouting a field one night, found a good portion of birds using a pond, had a field right next to it, couldn't hunt the pond. So I was sitting there getting ready to hunt the field. And I come around a corner, and there's a truck, and there's a guy sitting there with binoculars. I pulled down there. I asked him what he was doing. He said, "Man, I got permission." I said, "Well, it looks like we both got permission." And he said, "What are we going to do about it?" I said, "You got decoys, we got layouts." So I said, "Looks like we're hunting together." So, and next morning, he showed up with another buddy, and Will was with him. So,
and that's a good point. A lot of times, instead of fighting each other, right. For spots, people would just get along with each other and hunt together. I mean, everybody wins in that situation, but
Absolutely.
A lot of times it isn't like that.
Well, if you got people fighting, then you've got one group over here that's going to end up messing each other's birds up. So either way you go, you're losing if you both are trying to hunt separate. So you might as well just go ahead and hunt together.
Yeah, exactly. You got to, just team up and use your skills, against the birds. That's what the whole deal is, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. To be successful. Also today on the podcast, folks, I'm going to introduce him to the Ducks Unlimited world here. He's the brand new. Let's see, what is your title again?
So
Matt?
My official title is Communications and Stakeholder Specialist.
I got you. This is Matt Harrison, folks. Some of y'all may know him from Instagram or something like that. I know how many followers you say you have?
Combined on social media, I think it's around 340, 350,000, something around that.
So, yeah. So, Matt, tell us about how you got involved with Ducks Unlimited, where it happened and
Yes.
what led you here.
So, pretty much how my journey got started with Ducks Unlimited. So, I originally was a freelancer photographer, so that's what I was doing. I was working for a bunch of different outdoor companies, a whole bunch of great organizations that really helped me get my foot in the door, and I was doing a lot of work for myself, traveling all over, meeting a lot of amazing people, and so a lot of people listening to this probably is familiar with Barstool Outdoors, Sydney Wales. Sydney's a great friend of mine. Me and Sydney had met last year in Oklahoma on a duck hunt at Crashland Outdoors. We met there, ended up catching up together also at the NWTF in Nashville this past year as well. We did some videos there. They actually ended up going really viral. We did a mic'd up video there, went viral. So DU actually saw that video. Mallory saw it, reached out to us, asked us to come to DUX, and DUX is where I came with Barstool Outdoors with Sydney Wells, and we did a mic'd up video there. I got to meet our CEO, Adam Putnam, got to meet our former president, Doug Schoenrock, all of them amazing people. And, that's where it really all got kicked off. And, a couple months later, I ended up getting a phone call from DU with a job opportunity to apply for, and I did. And the rest is history. And, boy, am I so thankful to be a part of an organization like DU.
Well, we're glad to have you, Matt. And the reason we're here in Middle Tennessee is because you had talked to Alec before, through social media channels, and knew that he was a real deal goose hunter who wasn't playing around.
That's it. And, social media is one of those things that, a lot of bad is portrayed, but there's also, you can use it for such a great tool. And like you just mentioned, I had never even met Alec before. I think he had followed me on Instagram. He had reached out. We hopped on a phone call. We talked a little bit. He had told me about, how big of a goose hunter he was here in the Middle Tennessee area. And I could tell if you just listen to somebody talk, you can normally catch on words, phrases, and tell if they're a legit hunter, legit killer. And that's what I caught on to Alec. I knew that he was serious about what he did. And, once I accepted the job with DU, Mr. John here, who's on the podcast with us, he came to me, he was like, hey, do you happen to know of any legit, he's like, I'm talking about legit, hardcore, early season goose hunter. I was like, you know what? I actually do. And if it wasn't for that relationship me and Alec had formed on social media, we wouldn't be sitting here today. And that's the truth. I wouldn't have met Will. I wouldn't have met Alec. We wouldn't have had the successful hunt that we did. So, social media can be used for such a positive influence on so many relationships made in the industry.
Exactly. I think it's the way a lot of hunters especially meet each other these days, just through that vehicle. You've got Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter.
That's how me and Alec ended up getting caught back up after that hunt. So we actually didn't hunt together much after that.
Yeah.
And then I think it was the next year we ended up getting caught up on social media and then hunting again.
Later. That was
2 years later.
2018 season, 2020 season. I was hunting alone.
Yeah.
Both of our groups had kind of split ways. We were both just kind of on our own.
Yeah.
And he saw that when we were having some success, doing good, and I was legitimately sitting in a field on a real good low pond alone.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there. Right. I'm sitting there thinking, well, I hope a lot don't come in because it's 5 is all that's hitting the ground this morning.
And I was sitting on a riverbank hunting myself, and so it made more sense to try and kill them together than to try and...
Well, that's it, right? And goose hunting is one of those kind of deals. Yeah, it's difficult to do by yourself. It's such a gear-intensive deal. Like this morning, you got, 2 A-frame blinds. You've got, all kind of decoys to put out. it's just not like throwing a couple dozen out on a pond for a duck hunt.
Right.
And kicking back, right? So you really need some friends, some like-minded people who are willing to do the work, put in the time, man, to really goose hunt on a serious level. So I know y'all hunt a lot around here early season and throughout the year, but I know y'all decided to hit the road as well.
We try and hit the road at least a few times every year. We've been to Kansas multiple times, Texas, we've got some real good buddies out there, and then Wisconsin, we've formed some amazing relationships out there now with some boys, and now with those guys, we are our first real big trip of the year. We're going to be hitting North Dakota. So
yeah, I've been to North Dakota, man. It's North Dakota is the last great frontier to me of waterfowling, right? Where you've got a lot of open access to a lot of land up there. A lot of people will give you access to land. And of course, it's one of the best waterfowling states in the U.S. You've got everything really in North Dakota, from big Canadas, lessers, snows, specks, mallards, widgeon, pintail, teal. All of it's there, and all of it's pretty. And like I said, you really can gain access. And then their public lands program is huge. They've got, I think, 750,000 acres of private land that's enrolled in the plots program. Private lands open to hunters. And so just that alone is, golly, it just makes it a huge land of opportunity in North Dakota.
Yeah, it's a lot different from what we have around here.
That's right. And golly, resident Canada hunting is so different from hunting a place like North Dakota, right? Where you're in the wide open spaces. Here, You're basically close to town. I mean, we were hunting this morning. We were close to a road and everything else, but that's where you find them,
Right.
And you've got to make relationships yourself because to get that permission, right? And landowners have to trust you, right? That's another thing. People can be slobs. Let's face it, man. They don't clean up after themselves. They tear things up. They don't leave things the way they found them. So that really. It causes people to have pause to let people on their land.
We've been told no a lot because of those exact reasons, because somebody else had already been on it. They had already tore up, left trash, whatever. And our motto is if we go in, we try and take all our trash out. And if we see trash, we go ahead and pick that up and take that
Leave
out
it
too.
there and you found it.
Right. Always.
Yeah, that's it. And it's a good lesson for everybody listening. If you have access to private land, please, do what you can to always leave it better than you found it. And, if you've got some extra birds or whatever, take them to the landowner, right? Or, or buy them a little gift for Christmas or something, just keep those relationships flowing. And, that's what it's really, all about. So one thing that listeners don't know, the fact that you guys are really young, right?
Yes,
that's, I need really to tell you all that Alec, you're 20, correct?
Just turned 20. Yes,
Just
sir.
turned 20. And see, Will, you're 23
right now. I'll be 24 in October. Yes, sir.
And so these guys, from a very young age, have really embraced this and really taken this kind of hunting seriously, which I don't say it's rare, but people who do it right in y'all's age group is rare,
That's one challenge, too, about getting permission when we're so young.
Yeah.
A lot of older farmers and stuff, our generation's got such a bad name that a lot of us, they won't give permission for some of it.
Exactly,
So,
and it's because they've been burned in the past by people who have not treated their land well, and you just can't blame them for that, right?
That's something I've picked up on really quickly, especially when I was out there 16 driving around old little red truck, first truck I ever had, and pulling a little white duck trailer. You pull up, and that's a stupid kid that's about to go out there and rut up that field. He's about to go out there and shoot the houses that they're not but 80 yards away. And all that different stuff. That's why you learn real quickly on days that you're scouting, you need to dress clean. You need to dress good. You look professional, talk professional, wear your best, act your best. Don't just walk out there in your bloody bibs and mud covered everything. It's present them the way they want to basically imagine you out there hunting. They want to see exactly the type of person that's hunting. And while you might be a real good person, you show up in muck boots and bibs, you look like somebody's about to go up and tear their field. So
exactly. That's a very good point, man. The first impressions they have of you are everything, as far as gaining access. Let's just talk a little bit about how y'all got started. Matt, I'm going to start with you. I know you grew up in South Mississippi. It's not exactly a hotbed of waterfowling, right?
Not at all.
So give us a little bit of how you really got going on this path.
Yeah, so we were talking a little bit about it last night here at camp, and so my grandfather was a avid deer hunter, which he never really hunted waterfowl, but he is who introduced the outdoors to me and my brother. Our dad wasn't ever really a big hunter. He would take us anytime we wanted to go, supported us, was there for us, went with us. He was that force that we needed to go out into the outdoors and hunt, but he was never really a true, outdoorsman. So our papaw is really who got us started. Me and my brother one day were like, let's go duck hunting. So we actually started out hunting on the Leaf River and Smith County, jump shooting wood ducks off the river. And man, to be honest, now later, 10, 12 years down the road, me and my brother actually will still go back and shoot wood ducks off that same exact river and be like, man, this is where it all started. Me and my brother both ended up graduating from the University of Arkansas, Monticello, Arkansas, Southeast Arkansas there. Some of the best duck hunting, some of the best public ground I'd say in all the states for waterfowl hunting. And that's where we really got introduced to hardcore. There's a lot of WMAs there that you can't ride a four-wheeler in. You have to walk in. I mean, we've literally walked miles and miles and miles to go and shoot our 8 mallards. And, that's where we really got the true taste of what really waterfowl was about. So really and truly, we started duck hunting off the Leaf River, but it ended up growing into something so much bigger in duck hunting in southeast Arkansas around the Monticello area.
I got you. Yeah, that's a pretty common story. That it was a grandfather, father, and everything got you into it. Really got your juices flowing, so to speak, and then you just start carrying it forward on your own. And that's pretty common. Will, I know you must have been very young as well, and then. Will is a first class taxidermist, folks. I mean, he does great work. It's what is it? First Shed Taxidermy, is that the name of your outfit? Yes, sir. And so he's parlayed this into his livelihood, right? His career. So how did you get going?
Well, to be honest with you, the first time I ever went duck hunting, I don't really remember it because I was probably about 2 years old when my grandfather laid over my grandfather's arm, him toting me. But we started out. I killed my first duck when I was about 6 years old, and of course it was a cripple. And they said, "Here, let him shoot it." And so that was fun. It was awesome. That's kind of what got my drive started. And then from there on, it was next couple of years. It was getting ready, like practicing everything, getting ready so I could shoot. And then after I started shooting, it was done. I was in love with it.
Man, it's true. And I think it wasn't for me. Before I even started pulling the trigger at all, it was watching them fly.
Mm-hmm. Watching a bird just come down and cup up like he's fixing to want to land. There's nothing like it.
It's
in
very
my
true.
opinion.
And waterfowl gets so deep into your bloodstream, that you just, like I said, this is my 43rd season, and I love it as much today as I did 43 years ago. And things have progressed so much. I said, man, y'all should have seen me in some, hand-me-down, man-sized waders, coat and stuff. I mean, they had nothing for kids in those days. And, out there freezing to death. And I loved every single minute of it. So it's an incredible deal. Alec, yourself, how'd you get going at?
My whole family duck hunts. It's always been somewhat of a family affair there. They started taking me out to the blind when I was 3 years old. That's when everybody used to hunt the duck blinds around here before they all went west to Arkansas. And then around 2008 and 9, they all got on a big lease in Arkansas. And it was just kind of left to us to keep on hunting the blinds because we didn't get on that lease. So we hunted the blinds, a couple times a year, every year, and it was always good. But, you're relying on Dad to take you. Dad's got to go to work. He's got stuff to do. But then, like I said, around 15, 16, I started finding these birds, a lot closer to the house than we were going. We got shorter drives and better hunting. And then once I learned, kind of the whole process there, started understanding you got to scout for these birds. You got to get permission on them. It was all downhill from there. It was just I haven't let off of them since then.
Now you got the enclosed trailer, the full of decoys, blinds, the whole deal. It really takes over a portion of your life, and it becomes something that you really, really are passionate about. Talking about today's hunt, which was fantastic. I mean, we had some really good shooting, and it was really pretty fast and furious. For a while there were birds coming.
We're trying to pick birds up, and birds coming in, and
from front. But beforehand, what people don't see a lot of it is all the preparation that goes into it. We drove around for the entire afternoon, going all over different places. 5 hours, right? And even though we had found those birds fairly early on in the scout, because it's not far from here, right? And so,
but we had already scouted that morning too,
right? Yeah, I've been scouting. That's the huge thing about goose hunting. The scouting side of it is everything. If you don't put the miles in on the road scouting geese, you're never going to be successful. I think it's another thing that keeps people from doing it, just because. Especially with fuel costs the way they are now and everything else, it's expensive just to drive around. And y'all are about to take off to North Dakota and everything else. It becomes a lot. But and interesting deal. It was more of a loafing resting spot, right? The pond we hunted, and the birds roosted there. They stayed there last night. And here's another key. I think people. As long as you don't scare them to death, getting them off that water, they'll come back to it. And they did. And, I mean, they came back in smaller bunches. There was 2, 3, 4s, and a couple of bigger groups that were 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's just a great tactic. Will, just offhand, what do you think is the most important thing that people should know about, trying to hunt resident geese and do it successfully?
Know your birds. Know where your birds are using, what time of year, what those birds are doing, almost every second of every day. No, don't. When you find one pond where those birds are sitting on, I promise you, in a week or two, they're not going to be sitting on it. It's the fact of how they are. We were watching one pond for the last, 2 weeks, Alec?
3 weeks.
2 or 3 weeks. And we ended up on a different pond. We swapped up yesterday because the birds were gone. There wasn't any birds on it.
These birds live here. You're in your backyard, right?
Right.
I mean, they are going to change their patterns. They may, like you said, be doing the same thing for a month.
Right.
And all of a sudden, they just get bored with it, right? And they do something else.
Right.
And that's a whole different ballgame than hunting migrating birds, where these birds are fresh to an area or thing like that. You're literally, if you're not well hidden and really go the extra mile to make sure that, you fine-tune the little details, those birds will know you're there because they have been to that pond for
their whole life.
Yeah, their whole life. So it's that's a whole key to it. Alec, would you say the same thing, or you have a different opinion?
I would kind of work off what he said. It's mainly knowing your birds, knowing those birds' first, last, and middle names, understanding when they were born, how many of them were born that year, and where they're going to go. Because like he said, we've been watching a pond for 3 weeks now. We knew for sure, without a doubt, that's where we were hunting this weekend. And then yesterday, Scout told us they've moved. We rolled by that pond. There's one family group sitting down there. And I knew without a doubt, I said, okay, they're going to be down here. So we went down there. Sure enough, there's 110 of them. That's what you counted, I believe. 110 of them sitting down there. Ended up more coming in throughout the morning. So we went around, we hit all of our other hot spots because you understand where these birds use. You might go around and hit 30 of your hot spots and not a single bird, but for sure you're only getting closer because without a doubt they're here because they live here.
Right.
And if all these ponds are empty, that means they're loaded up somewhere. So just keep hitting all your different spots until you find them, and just understanding all the different spots that they use, even if you can't hunt it. Just know where your birds are. That way you can get a good idea of where they've been in the past, where they're going to go, and when they get off this spot, where they're going to head. It's going to help you when you're hunting traffic. It's going to help you when you're hunting X's and a lot of other stuff. It also helps you to plan hunts. Like today's spot, we know that they've stopped using the one spot. We burn them off at one pond today. I know 3 or 4 different spots they're probably going to be in the morning. So we'll hit those this evening and try and figure out a plan for tomorrow. So.
Yeah. The most important thing, though, is you talked about it was a roost pond. We will never shoot a roost pond.
No, there's just no need to.
What we did is we bumped those birds off of it first thing, and you guys know. But
and they hadn't been roosting there, so
no.
we had no intentions of pulling up hunting a roost pond. But when you show up at 4 o'clock in the morning and every bird on that side of the county sitting there, yes, that's what you got to work with. So we just pushed them off real quietly.
And that's a really good point. We talked about this yesterday about resident populations and how you have to be really conservative in your hunting in a lot of ways because you can really decimate a population to where it's going to be pretty much for all intents and purposes gone from an area because the birds have been completely shot out of it. This is not, you're not getting a big push of, 100,000 from the north.
Right.
So, you're looking at, you tell you another thing too, it's like, you're not going to find a field of 1,000, sitting there together like you would in Kansas or somewhere. It's going to be 100, 250, 40, it's much smaller numbers. And like I said, it's a very important thing to know that, if you just go in there, and pound on them relentlessly, there won't be any birds anymore. They're going to be gone because you've wiped them out.
Right. And another thing is we watch our birds all year. So our season closes at the end of January. We get the 2 weeks in February. And, me and him are on the phone the 3rd, 4th week of February. Hey, where are those birds nesting at right now? Yeah. And we watch, when they start hatching, we start watching goslings, and we want to know how many juveniles we have that coming year. So, and that kind of tells us how many we want to kill because we don't try and go out and kill all of them. Like you said, you can flat burn a group out.
Exactly.
If we wanted to stay on them just flat all season long and just burn them every single day, you could do it. It'd take a whole lot of gas, and you'd be tired at the end, but you could do it. But there's no need for everybody to be doing that on these local birds, because we know of flocks that have just been flat killed out, and it's not hard to do. A lot of these, we have different pockets of birds. The county that we were in alone today, it's got between 7 and 8 different pockets of birds. And when it gets cold, we know there's 3 or 4 different ponds they're all going to come to. But for the most part, they hold to themselves. They keep to their main pockets, and really the only thing that intermingles is the males that get kicked out of the groups. And you can see that from bands, that it's always the males that jump from city to city. But we understand that each group has a certain amount of birds, and if you have just torn into them in the past week or two, move on to the next group. Even if you might still be able to kill those birds, they might still be on your pond. You've already killed 40 of them in the past week, and there's only 150. So you got to leave them alone, because it might be 150, but a third of those birds are not quite 3 years old that you may not be nesting. So you might have just killed out half of your nesting population, in which case that group's not going to come back next year, or they may not come back nearly as well as they should.
Exactly. It can't be overstated, that you just got to be careful with the resident populations for sure. Let's talk decoying tactics a little bit. We talked yesterday about you can run into a molt phase of resident birds where you've got to change up what you're doing with the decoys, because a lot of times you just assume that it's just it's going to be family groups, right? That for resident birds, but in certain times when you've got molt birds that they'll be bunched up really tightly together.
Yeah, and the best example of that is going to be those last 2 weeks we're allowed to hunt in February, because it's so obvious. We don't get super cold around here most of the time. So last week of January and first week of February, those birds are already paired up. Most ponds already have 2 just pairs sitting on it. They're not quite making nests yet, but they're paired off. They're choosing their nesting spots, and we have eggs on the ground by March most of the time. So you can already see your pairs, but then you'll see those molts, those 3-year-old or less birds in February, because you'll have a pair or 2 come in throughout the morning, and then all of a sudden here comes 30 over the trees. And those birds have no intentions of nesting that year. They're not going to split off, and they'll hold pretty tight pretty much all year. They might split off into some slightly smaller groups, but they're not going to be paired off that year. And you'll see that a lot in September too, like that pond that we were watching yesterday evening. You could clearly, when they started breaking apart, you kind of see some family groups breaking apart, but then those 20 or 30 that kind of held together. It's just they have no intention of splitting apart. They are together, and they intend to stay together. Yeah,
that's it. The Canada goose is definitely a little different animal, because I think it's just because of the close knit relationship for the family relationships of Canada geese, a lot more so than ducks. You don't really see it with ducks, right? They don't really have those kind of relationships with each other. They'll pair up, but as far as groups of families, they really don't do it.
Well, we was scouting yesterday, and we seen a juvenile wood duck. It was all by itself, no parents, no other duck, just all by itself, and it was young.
Yeah.
So it could fly, but it was you could tell it was definitely a young bird.
Right. It's similar, too. You're talking about the molt birds. They're not mature enough to breed, right?
No.
Same with snow geese. That's when you get all the adults have got that breeding urge, in the spring, and they're really the front edge of the migration. And if you hang tight and you catch the back end, they're all juveniles, right? Because they have no urgency to get north. They don't have to, It's the same way with the Canada goose.
And Alec, talking about decoy tactics, early this morning we could tell with the first couple groups, we were able to shoot and decoy some, but some of them didn't quite seem like they wanted to just finish like we wanted them to. Do you think some of that had to do with our weather conditions, because it was cloudy, they were able to see our A-frames? Do you think maybe something with the decoys? What do you think? What's something for a listener to do, whenever the birds aren't quite finishing like they should on these resident geese?
Big thing is understanding your wind and understanding how much wind means to a goose. Wind means stuff to ducks, but it doesn't mean nearly as much to a duck as it does a goose. It's hard. It's physically hard for a goose to land without enough wind, without at least 3-4 miles an hour. That's why a lot of times, if you're hunting a dead still morning like this morning started out as, you'll think birds are flaring, they're doing this. They're not flaring. They're just they're trying to get down there, but they just physically can't. And you'll know that by actually sitting there watching live birds come in, and you'll think, well, those birds are flaring off other live birds. No, they're trying to get down there, but they just can't. You're talking about an 11, 12-pound honker there that needs a little bit of resistance to slow him down. That's why they're That's why they're always going to try and land in the water whenever they can. It doesn't hurt quite as bad. But I think another thing that definitely hurt us this morning was it was extremely overcast. It was sprinkling a little bit, starting to rain, and they could see everything.
Yeah.
They were picking it out real good. We didn't have that A-frame shadow like sometimes you have to deal with, but they were still picking us out pretty good. So that, along with the no wind, it gave them that time that they needed to really pick us out and learn a lot. And in which case, once again, these are local birds. We had a lot of smaller groups this morning, definitely family groups. We had a few, might have been a few molts stuck together. But a lot of these family groups, they've seen us there before. They know us. When we pop out of the blind, they say, "Man,
That's
it's them."
that same boy.
They say it's them
Yeah.
and they know the deal. They know we've set a blind in that exact spot 5 times before.
They're not stupid.
And while it might have been 6 months since the last time they saw us sitting right there, they still seen it before. Yep. So they're already just a little weary of it. They hadn't been sitting north of the trees in Canada for the past 6 months. So they're not stupid by any means, but I think no wind and overcast, they were picking everything out really good. That's the main thing that hurt us this morning.
For sure. Yeah, that I always like. Yeah, especially for geese, sunshine and wind. Those are your friends, man. Always. You just always do better. And I like south wind for some reason. I just don't. If you get really heavy north winds, especially in the winter, it just seems to be disruptive. We don't like it. They don't like it. They just seem to be a lot more comfortable on south winds than they do north.
No doubt.
Well, I was going to ask you a question, Matt. Like I said, once again, growing up in the really the goose hotbed of South Mississippi. I guess I'm assuming that most of your goose hunting experience is all taking place in Arkansas.
No doubt. And I'm a avid duck hunter. I've done my share of goose hunting, but really and truly, all this is new to me. I've gone on a couple hunts in southeast Arkansas, snow geese. Never been. This was my first true Canada goose hunt, so this was really cool to see. All the ins and outs. And what's so neat to me is, don't get me wrong, it's all waterfowl, right? But at the same time, there's certain things that mean more to the species you're chasing. Like Alec just said, yeah, of course, no doubt that wind plays a part with ducks. We know that. We know that as duck hunters, as geese hunters or goose hunters. We know that. But at the same time, like Alec said, I think it plays a little bit more of a factor. The calling that, I listened to Will and Alec do this morning. I love duck calling. That's probably my favorite thing in all of waterfowl hunting, is being able to work a duck. Like, I would truly rather leave my shotgun at home than forget my duck call. Like, I love working ducks, learning ducks, knowing how to hit them at the right time, knowing when to shut up. And, I even think calling geese is a little bit different than ducks. And, I think just learning that, I think watching these two guys that, have done it, have, seen what does work and doesn't work. So getting to learn that is really neat to me. Like I said, I'm nowhere near a professional goose hunter. That's for sure. But learning it, that's neat to me, because goose hunting brings its own challenges, and that's just so cool. And these two guys right here, I think they've got a great jump on figuring them out, especially for their age.
Exactly, especially for their age. I mean, y'all have impressed me as being a long time goose hunter. That you can see the pretenders, from a mile away.
Oh yeah.
I mean, people who wants to play like they're hunters, and I can, you can just tell instantly. Like I said, just talking to you, things you say about it that y'all aren't playing around. But, it's tough. I mean, this is Middle Tennessee. This is not Western Tennessee. This isn't Arkansas. No. This is,
You're right.
This is not one of the great historic, areas for waterfowl in the country.
Not at all.
What y'all have accomplished on figuring this stuff out around here is more impressive, because if you can consistently harvest birds in an area like this, you can go just anywhere and kill them, right? I mean, you can go to Kansas and Nebraska, North Dakota, and be successful.
If you're killing, and I mean, we shot 3 limits this morning. I mean, being able to do that where waterfowling is not even close to a priority here, that's impressive. That's impressive to be able to go and do what these guys do.
I grew up in the Houston area. There was a whole culture of goose hunting built around that place, man. That was just the historic place that everyone came to hunt, snows, and specs. And so, I got to learn from some guys who really, really knew what they were doing, and y'all have had to figure this out on your own.
Right.
You didn't have mentors like I did.
We didn't have any mentors, that's for sure.
Showing you, teaching you what to do.
Right.
Because there was just no culture here. So that's I really, commend y'all for putting in the work, putting in the time, really learning what you're doing.
So not only did we have a good hunt this morning, but we had a little something special.
Yeah.
A little something special happened. So we we had this one single goose come in. It was a one of those at 1, 2, 3, and everybody shoots. I think
Right.
The goose falls literally in the dead middle of the pond, and I think actually right after we shot it, we looked up and had another big group working. So we jumped back in our blind. We didn't have a dog this morning. Alec was the only one in a pair of waders. It was a little too deep to go on the side that we were set up on, so we ended up hunting for a little bit. Alec ended up going on the other side to retrieve a goose. And so Alec begins to wade out there to the goose that had been sitting out there for probably 30, 45 minutes. Yeah. And I mean, Alec is one breath away from just filling up those waders. It's one of those that you're just, it's about to happen. And I see Alec, he's got his straps pulled up, he's got his breath held, and he goes to reach to grab the goose, and he goes, "It's banded! It's banded!" So
Will jumped out of his skin, man.
Will,
I thought we had birds right on top of us. I wasn't even worried about what he was doing.
And so, we were able to kill that band. And what was really cool about that is yesterday scouting, at this same exact pond, we had 2 pair of binoculars. We were scanning, looking at this loaf, and we saw actually one of the birds that was banded there, and who knows if that was the one or not. But at the same time, we were able to harvest not only a 3-man limit this morning, but also shoot a band, which made even that much more special. And it's actually a band, correct me if I'm wrong now, it's banned in 2014. It was a Write a Letter To band.
2014, born 2013 or earlier.
So it was probably at least close to a 10-year-old.
9, 10-year-old bird at minimum.
Minimum. And I mean, this, if y'all could see this band, I mean, it was worn down.
It was barely on the leg.
I was almost scared to,
it was going to fall off.
Exactly. And so anyway, how did we decide who got this band? I feel like there may be a little bit of beef right now.
Story to this.
You want to tell it?
We didn't have a quarter. We're not big on band draws. We don't feel like that's always the most fair thing to do. We normally just try and go with whoever shot it, but in this case this morning, everybody shot it.
We all shot it.
Yeah. So it came down to the 2 of us, and had a little fake band in the truck, and I held it up and I said, well, if the numbers land upright, I said, it's mine. I said, if they land upside down, it's yours. And sure enough, they landed upside down. So
it landed in the center first, so we were supposed to split it.
Well, we could have.
Cut it in half.
We're gonna have to have a community lanyard around here.
Everybody, wants the band, and it's awesome to fill that lanyard up. Who doesn't like that? But at the same time, if you're able to harvest a band, especially on a day like today where we didn't have the best conditions, we didn't have the beautiful sunrise with the sun out, with the right wind. I mean, so being able to scratch out 3 limits on top of a band like that, it just makes this hunt. This is a hunt. I mean, it's my first ever Canada goose hunt with a band. Right. I mean, what are the odds of that? So it's a hunt, no doubt that, that I'll remember forever. There's no question about it. And, we have a 20-year-old and about to be 24-year-old here that, have truly, truly, truly done a wonderful job of learning these birds, because it's not easy. It's not. Clearly, we traveled for 5 hours yesterday just after we had already found the pond that we hunted. Yeah. Like Alex said, just to find that extra pond to know where they are or know where they're not. Because we didn't even find another pond after the one that we originally found with birds that really had a substantial amount of birds. So, it takes not only a great amount of time, but money too. I mean, gas is not cheap. We know that. And, so this is a hunt that's, I'll already, put it up there with an awesome hunt just because, not only, you know, have we been able to share camp together today, last night, and tomorrow, but, you know, just having that hunt that we'll always remember. So I think today and these past few days have been nothing short of amazing.
It's the truth, man. We can't thank y'all enough, you know. And the great thing about this, you know, is that not only are we talking about it, but people are going to be able to see it.
Don't get to see it.
They're going to get to see it on DU Nation. And like I said, this DU Nation is just really a departure from anything we've really tried to do before, because we're just trying. DU Nation is a reality series. That's what it is, right?
Yes.
I mean, we're showing people's experiences, not only, you know, hunting, it's fishing and the outdoors, lifestyle,
Conservation,
you know,
the
all
whole
of it,
nine.
conservation and dogs and you know, upland game. You know, I mean, we're, you know, I've got to come up with a pheasant hunt for us, you know, to go on, and I'm gonna get it done. I'm gonna get it done. But so yeah, I just encourage everybody to check out DU Nation. It's going to be exclusively on the DU YouTube channel.
Yep.
So, and we'll have content coming out, man, every week.
Y'all won't want to miss this episode.
Yeah, you won't want to miss this episode, man, because it's pretty cool. I think Zach got a little tree action with the bird and everything else. So, you know, like I said, that's a great thing about this, is that not only people listen to it and think about it, but they can see it happen in real time.
Yeah,
you know?
And also shout out to Zach. Zach's not on the podcast here with us, but Zach, whenever you see the episode, Zach is behind the camera,
the guy behind
and
the
he's who makes this happen. So
yeah, that's right.
Props to Zach.
Talking about Zach Elsherman, he's a new videographer at DU. So and he's a really talented guy. You know, spent many years in the Navy. Doing some filming for them with combat stuff. He's done some
pretty cool
stuff. Yeah, with ships and jets and everything else. It's pretty cool. So filming geese for him, I think, was something new, but you know, he's a pro, right? I mean, he just flowed with it, and you know, give props to Zach,
no doubt,
for everybody. But anyway, well, you know, I thank everyone for tuning into the Ducks Unlimited podcast and continuing to support wetlands conservation and Ducks Unlimited. You know, without you, the listener and the supporter of what we do, it wouldn't happen. So, and thanks for listening again to the DU podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the DU podcast. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and visit www.ducks.org/DU podcast for resources based on today's topics, as well as access to more episodes. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of Ducks Unlimited. Until next time, stay tuned to the Ducks. Stay tuned to the Ducks. Stay tuned to the Ducks.